Well, good morning and welcome to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson. Listen, if you want to understand the Iranian problem, you're going to have to start by rejecting the lazy explanation. This is not about one president, not one party, not one bad decision. This is a problem that has outlived administrations, ideologies, and strategies. So, from the moment that the Islamic Revolution took hold in 1979, I was 19. Iran positioned itself not only as a rival nation, but as a regime ideologically opposed to American influence. And that matters because it means this is not just geopolitical, it's philosophical, cultural, and very long term. In November of that same year, militants stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and took 52 American hostages for 444 days. Then President Jimmy Carter responded with sanctions and diplomacy and ultimately a failed rescue mission. That moment didn't just define his presidency, it defined the American understanding of Iran: humiliation, defiance, hostage taking as leverage. And here's the part that people miss: Iran learned something too. They learned that the United States, for all its power, could be politically pressured, stalled, and embarrassed on the world stage. Ronald Reagan entered office with the hostages released, and many saw that as strength restored. But the Iranian problem didn't go away, it just evolved. Iran deepened its revolutionary identity, funded militant networks, and fought a brutal war with Iraq. The United States labeled Iran a state sponsor of terrorism. But then came Iran Contra, where arms were quietly traded in hopes of influencing hostage releases. So even in a tough administration, you had contradiction: public strength, private compromise. And that pattern say one thing, do another, would echo for decades. Now under George H.W. Bush, the strategy shifted to something quieter but more permanent: containment. The sanctions remained, the pressure remained, but there was no serious attempt to fundamentally change the regime. The goal became management: keep Iran boxed in, limit its reach, protect global oil flow, avoid war. Now that sounds reasonable, but it also marks a turning point. America stopped trying to solve the Iranian problem and started trying to live with it. Now, Bill Clinton took that containment strategy and hardened it economically. In the mid 90s, the US imposed sweeping trade embargoes and targeted Iran's energy sector. This is where the modern sanction architecture really took shape. The thinking was simple: if you can't topple the regime and you don't want war, then you squeeze the money, you restrict the oil, you isolate banking, you make bad behavior very expensive. But again, no resolution. Iran remained hostile, active, and increasingly sophisticated in how it projected power across the region. And then came 9/11, and everything changed under George W. Bush. Iran was named part of the axis of evil, and the rhetoric sharpened. But here's the irony that has to be said: the Iraq War removed Saddam Hussein, Iran's biggest regional enemy, and created a power vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and that vacuum allowed Iran to expand influence inside of Iraq, politically, militarily, and ideologically. So while Bush correctly identified the threat, the region reshaping of the Middle East ended up strengthening Iran's position in ways that almost nobody could have predicted at the time. And then President Barack Obama came into office. The Iranian problem had narrowed into one urgent focus: the nuclear program. His administration pursued sanctions early, then built an international coalition and ultimately negotiated the nuclear deal in 2015. The argument was that the deal would not fix everything, but it would prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon in the near future. It was, in essence, risk management. Put the nuclear threat in a box and deal with the rest later. Now, critics argued that the deal ignored Iran's broader behavior, its missile program, its proxy networks, and its regional ambitions. And that's where the divide really forms. Is Iran primarily a nuclear problem, or is it a regime problem? Obama treated the nuclear issue as the fire to put out first. Others believe the fire was much bigger, and that disagreement would shape everything that came next. Donald Trump's first term rejected that approach outright. He withdrew from the nuclear deal and implemented what he called maximum pressure. Heavy sanctions returned, like from the Clinton era. Oil exports were targeted, like from the Clinton era. Financial systems were tightened, like from the Clinton era. And in 2020, U.S. killed Qasem Soleimani, one of Iran's most powerful military figures. This was a shift, not in recognizing the problem, but in how to confront it. Pressure first, force visible, negotiation from a position of dominance, not partnership. Joe Biden came in attempting to reset that approach to the Obama era. His administration explored returning to the nuclear deal and re-engaging diplomatically. But the environment at that point had changed. Iran had advanced its nuclear capabilities, trust was much lower, regional tensions were higher, talks dragged, and ultimately the deal was not restored. Then came a series of regional escalations, proxy conflicts, attacks on shipping, and direct confrontation with Israel. The nuclear issue was no longer the only headline. The entire regional network was now front and center. And here we are, in the current moment. Donald Trump is back in office, and the pressure has intensified. Sanctions remain, military positioning has increased, negotiations are still being discussed, but from a position of confrontation, not cooperation. Meanwhile, Iran's nuclear capability is closer than it has been ever, and its regional influence remains intact. After all this time, after all of these strategies, the core problem still exists. So, what are the world effects of this decades-long standoff? Well, let's start with energy. The Strait of Hormuz remains one of the most critical choke points in global oil supply. Any escalation with Iran threatens not just regional stability, but global markets. And then there's the proxy network. Groups in Lebanon and Gaza, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen that extend Iran's reach without direct confrontation. That creates a constant state of low-level conflict that can spike at any time. Then there's credibility. Every administration says that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon. Every administration applies pressure in the same form. And yet, the program advances. That creates a perception, fair or not, that the United States is managing the problem rather than solving it. And in international politics, perception becomes reality faster than most people realize. And finally, there's the American dilemma. Do you contain Iran? Do you confront Iran? Do you negotiate with Iran? Or do you try to do all three at once? Because for 40 plus years, that's exactly what we've done. Sanctions, diplomacy, military pressure, covert actions. Every tool in the toolbox has been used, just in different combinations, different orders, and different intensities. And here's the truth that should sober everybody up. Iran has been remarkably consistent. The regime's objectives have not changed. Survive, resist, expand influence, and move towards strategic deterrence. The United States, on the other hand, has shifted approaches with each administration. Sometimes subtle, sometimes dramatic, but always shifting. And when one side is consistent and the other is not, the consistent side tends to endure. So when you try to hear people reduce this conversation to one president's tone or to one administration's decision, understand that you are being handed a smaller argument than the reality demands. This is not about tone alone. It's not about one deal or one strike or one speech. It's a long-term strategic contest that has outlived 8 presidents and shows no sign of ending anytime soon. This Iranian problem is not new, and it's not simple, and it's not solved. One revolution, 8 presidents, decades of pressure, negotiation, and conflict. And we are still asking the very same question right now. What actually, if anything, works? I hope this explanation of the Iranian situation is helpful. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We'll see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.